James, the CEO wants to talk to you, and Michael is with him too. It seems you're finally being let go. I guess I'm just an unlucky guy. As I headed to the CEO's office, through the elevator and the hallway, I was engulfed in gloom. When I entered the CEO's office, just as my subordinate had said, Mr. Smith and department head Michael were there. "You don't fit in our company, you're fired." Hearing this sudden dismissal from Mr. Smith, Michael, sitting beside me, raised the corners of his mouth, bursting into a smile of joy. But then, are you perhaps misunderstanding something? The true nature of this dismissal that he revealed next was shockingly unexpected. I am James. This year, I turned 37, just an ordinary company employee. I now live in a corner of New York, originally from a rural area in Idaho. Maybe it's because I was nurtured in a generous and leisurely countryside environment. Though it's a bit odd to say about myself, I've never been able to become as cool and detached as city folks, always siding with those in trouble or in a weaker position, a man of deep compassion. I went to school in rural Idaho until high school and then attended a mid-tier private university in New York. During my college years, I worked various part-time jobs and eventually got a job at an IT company, T-Tech, which at the time was barely more than a startup. Before I knew it, 15 years had passed as I struggled and worked at this company, and I've reached this age. The company, which was small when I joined, has grown into a mid-sized IT trading company. As a mid-level manager and the head of the system development section at our New York headquarters, my work environment is far from ideal, to say the least. Being a head in name only, I'm constantly caught between the demands of my superiors and the needs of my subordinates. A classic example of being stuck between a rock and a hard place. Especially among my subordinates, many are from prestigious universities, making them generally difficult to handle. Among them, some subordinates have very high self-esteem and self-confidence, and they are very assertive. Therefore, as a mediocre supervisor with a significantly lower educational background than theirs, I often sense their defiance and mockery towards my instructions, even if they don't express it openly. In other words, they look down on me as their head. Moreover, my direct superior, the head of the system development section, Michael, is a typical opportunist who climbed the career ladder just by being savvy. Michael tends to delegate tall, important, or complex tasks to his subordinates, leaving everything to others while he takes all the credit for himself. A deceitful superior who only wants to reap the benefits without putting in the work. These troublesome subordinates and superiors are mostly from the prestigious private university, K University, forming an unbearable internal university clique. Michael often says to me, "James, your alma mater, N University, is like the typical fallback university for us K University graduates, isn't it? It's sad. You must be harboring such a complex, it's scary." Michael would say this out loud, ensuring I hear it, and then the subordinates from K University would laugh mockingly at me, even though it wasn't funny at all. Indeed, N University, my alma mater, is not highly ranked and is considered a safety school for students aiming for prestigious universities like K University. I, too, had applied to prestigious universities but ended up at N University as my safety option, so Michael's sarcastic comments often struck a chord with me. In this hostile office environment, my oasis was Elizabeth, who recently started working as a cleaner in our office. Elizabeth, not yet accustomed to her job, often made mistakes and seemed lost on the floor, which led to some mean-spirited younger employees clicking their tongues or harassing her openly. However, as I mentioned earlier, being raised in the countryside has instilled in me a nature that can't ignore those in vulnerable positions. Gradually, I found myself discreetly helping Elizabeth when she seemed to be struggling with her cleaning tasks, and started to strike up friendly conversations with her. Elizabeth wore a large cleaner's hat pulled down over her eyes and a big mask, making it hard to see her face, but she seemed to be quite elderly. She warmed up to me as I helped her out and started making small talk, sharing stories from her life that were both interesting and insightful. Indeed, the stories from Elizabeth, who has lived through many years and is a senior in life, were interesting and full of wisdom. In the midst of the hostile work environment that left me feeling on edge, the casual chats with Elizabeth gradually became an irreplaceable form of relaxation for me. However, my subordinates in the system development section, especially those in the K University clique led by Michael, openly mocked us. Seeing me, with my lower education, happily chatting with the cleaner Elizabeth, they would say loudly enough for us to hear. Low-educated old man and an old lady, perfect match at the bottom. On one such day, after working late at the office and feeling completely drained, I finally made it to the nearest station to my company. As I passed through the ticket gate and was descending the stairs to the platform, a wallet flew out of the bag of an elderly woman walking slightly ahead of me and fell to the ground. However, the elderly lady didn't notice and continued to hurry towards the platform. I immediately made my way through the crowd, picked up the fallen wallet, looked up, and frantically searched for her. To my relief, I found her already lined up at the boarding area of the platform. It was a platform for a train heading in the opposite direction to mine. I need to get this wallet back to that elderly lady quickly. In the midst of the rush hour crowd, I hurried down the stairs to the platform as fast as I could, but unfortunately, the train was already pulling in. The train doors opened all at once, and the elderly lady boarded. No choice, it's going the opposite way, but I'll have to get on that train. Desperate, I raced down the stairs and barely managed to slip through the doors just as they were closing, boarding the train heading in the opposite direction to my home. Once on, I found the train packed to the brim with commuters. I had seen the elderly lady with the lost wallet board the next car over. I have to get this wallet to her before she gets off. While receiving some annoyed looks and tuts from other passengers, I apologized profusely and slowly made my way through the crowded car towards the next one. By the time I reached the elderly lady's car, 2 stations had passed. As I quickly explained how I found her wallet and came to return it, the elderly lady looked incredibly surprised. Though she appeared quite elderly, she seemed energetic and had a kind, refined face. What struck me was how her eyes widened in shock the moment she saw me. "You are such a kind person, to go out of your way to return a lost wallet by boarding a train going in the opposite direction of your home." The elderly lady was so moved, thanking me repeatedly, that I became embarrassed and modestly replied, "Oh, it was nothing. Just doing what anyone would." Just then, as the train was stopping at the second station, I said, "Well, this is my stop," and bid the elderly lady goodbye before hopping off the train. Having taken the train in the wrong direction, I decided to wait on the opposite platform for a train going back the way I came. That's when something strange occurred to me. How did that elderly lady know I took the train in the opposite direction? Despite not having mentioned anything about myself, the elderly lady somehow knew I had taken the train in the opposite direction to return her wallet. Life is full of mysteries. With a puzzled shake of my head, I boarded the train home. The next day, as I arrived at work as usual, my colleague Brian rushed over to my desk. "James, thank you so much. The proposal you advised me on last week, I presented it as you instructed, and we got the contract. And this morning, Mr. Smith personally called me in to commend me for it, all thanks to you." Honestly, I had always thought Brian was one of those who looked down on me with a bad attitude, so his sudden change took me by surprise. I had advised Brian on numerous occasions, and this wasn't the first time a deal had gone through, but it was the first time he had expressed gratitude and thanked me like this. Was being praised by Mr. Smith personally really such a game changer? Sensing my skepticism, Brian added, "Yeah, James. The reason I came to thank you is that he told me to." He said, "This successful deal is thanks to James." A competent and exemplary supervisor. Make sure you thank him properly. Watching Brian walk away, I muttered to myself, why would he? That day was just the beginning, and from the next day on, the atmosphere around me at work began to change significantly. Without altering my work style or approach from the previous week, good news and results started coming my way one after another. Specifically, one of our long-standing clients approached us with a proposal to embark on a major project together. And, to my surprise, they nominated me as the person in charge from our company. Having worked here for about 15 years, this was the first time I had been specifically requested for a project. In the past, even if I did high-quality work, someone else always seemed to take the credit or obstruct my efforts. It felt like I had gone from being a symbol of misfortune to someone basking in the limelight. I asked Jessica, the client's representative, why she chose me as the contact person for our company, despite there being other employees available. Jessica replied, "It was because Mr. Smith recommended you. He assured us that if it's James from the System Development Department, there can be no mistake. We took the liberty of looking into your past achievements and, true to his word, found you to be an exceptionally capable individual." I was taken aback to hear once again that he had played a role in this. And so, my once luckless corporate life seemed to be taking a turn for the better recently, lifting my spirits and making me grin to myself. Being appointed as the person in charge of an unprecedentedly large project from a client filled me with enthusiasm, and I dived into the preparations. This project was undoubtedly the biggest opportunity in my career, and its success would significantly enhance my reputation. I was brimming with motivation. Day after day, I stayed late at the office, fully focused on preparing for this project. Creating specifications for the newly developed program, drafting various explanatory documents, preparing for presentations. I was giving it my all, drawing on every bit of strength I had. After a month of such dizzyingly busy yet fulfilling days, the final presentation, where I would meet all the clients, was just 2 days away. After tirelessly working through sleepless nights, I managed to complete the new system and nearly finished the specification documents and the extensive materials for business negotiations by yesterday. On the day before the presentation, I arrived at work, trying to contain my excitement, and launched the newly completed system for a trial run. Then, I tried to open the specification document files stored on my PC, along with other files for the business negotiation presentation. But they were gone. All the files had been deleted. Moreover, all the backup files I had made as a precaution were also erased. Even more, all the documents I had printed out and piled up next to my PC just the day before had vanished without a trace. This can't be happening. What on earth is going on? I felt a chill run down my spine and couldn't help but shout out loud. In a panic, I searched under my desk and in my drawers, desperately looking for the stacks of documents, but they were nowhere to be found. As I was doing this, drawn by my earlier shout, some people came over, laughing uproariously. When I turned towards the source of the crude laughter, there were Michael and his entourage, looking down on me with scorn. "Too bad. All those documents you worked so hard on and the files on your PC, this guy threw them all away." Michael, seemingly finding the situation hilarious, intimately burst into laughter, pointing at David, a junior employee. David was a newcomer, but like Michael, he was from K University and had a nasty personality, acting like Michael's lackey. "I thought your files and documents were garbage just like you, so I deleted all the files along with the backups, and threw all the paper stacks into the shredder bin." As David made his flippant remark, Michael and the rest of the group burst into uncontrollable laughter. "Haha, it's hilarious, right? Threw them all away. Haha, now James can't do his presentation. Bye-bye, business deal. Oh dear, such a big project gone to waste. What a pity, poor thing." Michael and his cronies mocked and tormented me, making a laughing stock out of me. Glaring at Michael and David, who had deleted the files, I said, "Do you have any idea what you're doing? Aren't you ashamed of yourselves for stooping to such despicable actions?" To which David brazenly replied, "Not at all. We have to nip in the bud any bad influence from our incompetent senior, or it's us, the juniors, who end up getting crushed." Haha, getting told off by the newbie. James, you've been getting a bit too cocky lately because you've been recognized a bit. You were an eyesore, so we just gave you a reality check. Go ahead and embarrass yourself in the business meeting and revert back to your mediocre self. And don't you dare get ahead of yourself ever again. Michael, seizing the moment, vented his true feelings. Hearing Michael's appalling words, I realized everything. Michael, the department head of system development, was deeply resentful that I, a mere supervisor, had been appointed by the client for a big project, bypassing him. I felt his actions were clearly driven by ugly jealousy towards me. Stunned by their actions and responses, I was left speechless as Michael, with a parting shot of "Let this be a lesson. Never overstep again, you worthless supervisor," walked away with his entourage from my desk. As I watched their retreating figures with a sense of despair, I muttered to myself, all the backup files were deleted, and all the documents were thrown away. I could start over from scratch. But there's absolutely no way I can finish before the day after tomorrow's business meeting. It's all over. How could I have been so careless? I blamed myself for leaving my PC unlocked and for carelessly leaving the documents by my desk, feeling a sense of futility in hindsight. The next day, I went to work feeling utterly despondent. With the business meeting now seemingly doomed, my spirit hit rock bottom and I was overwhelmed with depression. Barely able to stand. Unable to focus on work, I went to the break room alone, repeatedly sighing and holding my head in my hands. Embarrassingly, I felt a lump in my throat from my own inadequacy. Then, someone patted my shoulder. Looking up, I saw Elizabeth, the cleaner, looking at me with concern. Elizabeth, sorry, I'm not really in the mood for small talk right now." As I said this, Elizabeth smiled kindly with just her eyes showing, then presented something she had been hiding behind her back. To my astonishment, it was the stack of documents I had printed out, which were supposed to have been thrown away by David. The specification documents for the new system, the materials for the presentation, and all the documents for the business negotiations were all there, intact. "What, Elizabeth, where did you find these?" Surprised, I asked, and Elizabeth replied, "The day before yesterday, when I was collecting trash, I found a large stack of documents in the bin for shredding, which isn't usually there. It seemed odd, so I checked and saw they were the documents you've been working so hard on every day. I thought to myself that I couldn't let such important things be shredded, so I collected and saved them all right there." At that moment, Elizabeth appeared to me like a saint. "Elizabeth, thank you so much. With these, I can go ahead with tomorrow's presentation and negotiation. You saved me at the last minute. You're my savior, Elizabeth. Thank you." Overwhelmed with gratitude, I couldn't help but rejoice, and Elizabeth watched me with a pleased expression, nodding repeatedly as she spoke. "What goes around comes around. You're my savior, after all." Faced with Elizabeth's cryptic remark, I looked at her in bewilderment, only to see her chuckle amusingly in response. The following day, I was able to attend a presentation for the big project we were working on with our client, and thanks to the documents, I managed to conduct a successful presentation. The subsequent negotiations also ended in great success, leading to contracts with several major client companies. It turned out to be one of the largest deals in the history of my company, T-Tech. Elizabeth, thank you. The negotiations were a huge success thanks to you. I wanted to share this great success with Elizabeth, who had saved the documents, before anyone else. When I happily arrived at work the next day, I was greeted by David, one of Michael's spiteful followers. David said to me with a sneer, "James, Mr. Smith wants to talk to you, and Michael is joining him. It seems, James, you are finally being let go. Still buzzing from the success of yesterday's negotiations, David's words felt like a cold shower. Just when I thought I was finally in a position to shine, my joy was short-lived, and now I was being fired. David mentioned that Michael was also in the CEO's office. Probably, Michael had framed the deletion of my files as a result of my mishandling. That must have led to discussions of my dismissal due to a supposed lack of confidentiality management skills. I guess I'm just an unlucky guy. With a heavy heart, I made my way to the CEO's office, pondering over these thoughts in the elevator and the hallway. I knocked and entered the CEO's office. Upon entering, just as David had said, Mr. Smith and Michael were there. "Ah, James, you've come. Take a seat." Mr. Smith gestured for me to sit. Then, unexpectedly, he said, "You're not suited for our company. You're fired." I thought to myself in shock, "This is so sudden," and screamed internally. Hearing Mr. Smith's abrupt announcement, Michael, sitting next to me, grinned with joy. Although I was prepared for the worst, the injustice of it all filled me with an unbearable sense of frustration, and I couldn't help but question Mr. Smith. "Mr. Smith, I'm fully aware that I haven't performed perfectly. I apologize. However, I have always worked diligently for this company. Isn't a sudden dismissal too harsh? Could you at least explain the reason?" Cutting off my plea, Mr. Smith said, "Hold on, James. It seems you're misunderstanding something. I wasn't talking about firing you." "What?" I exclaimed in surprise at Mr. Smith's unexpected response. "James, you're a treasure to our company. Firing you would be a loss for us. I was talking about firing Michael. You, Michael." At Mr. Smith's words, Michael was taken aback. "What are you saying, Mr. Smith? Why would you fire me, the manager, instead of this incompetent supervisor, James?" Even at this point, Michael didn't hold back his disdain for me. "It's quite the opposite. And Michael, why do you think it's only fair for you to be fired? You should know best, don't you? Come in now." Mr. Smith shouted towards the secretary's office. Then, the door to the secretary's office opened, and in came Elizabeth. Seeing her, Michael was the first to react angrily. "The cleaning lady, hey, we're having an important conversation here. Don't just barge in." Despite being yelled at by Michael, Elizabeth retorted, "Old lady, who do you think you're talking to?" With that, Elizabeth removed her mask and hat, which she never took off in public. Upon seeing her face, I couldn't help but exclaim, "Ah!" It was definitely a face I recognized. "It's you, the lady who dropped her wallet on the train that time." When I tentatively asked, Elizabeth smiled warmly and replied, "Yes, thank you so much for that time. Thanks to you, I didn't lose my important cash, cards, and driver's license. You're my savior." To think that the elegant elderly lady I encountered that time was the cleaning staff I chatted with every day. Seeing my speechless surprise, Mr. Smith added with a smile, "Indeed, James, I also want to thank you for returning my mother's wallet. Though belated, I appreciate it." It seemed Michael was the most shocked by Mr. Smith's words. "My mother? Wait, is this lady really your mother?" As Michael's face turned pale with shock, Mr. Smith reprimanded him sharply. "Watch your mouth, Michael. You've been slandering someone's mother by calling her an old lady. It's because of your twisted personality that you're utterly unfit for our company." Michael, scolded by Mr. Smith, began to tremble with fear, his face turning even paler. After giving Michael a disdainful glance, Elizabeth began to explain the situation. The details were as follows. The mother, wanting to contribute to her son's company in some way, decided to utilize her cleaning skills and began working as a cleaner. While working as a cleaner, she observed the office staff and their characters. During this time, Elizabeth was drawn to my work ethic and character. After the incident with the wallet, she had even suggested to her son that my promotion and performance evaluation be reconsidered. Moreover, Elizabeth had been keeping an eye on Michael's tyrannical behavior and had reported everything, including the truth about the negotiation documents, to Mr. Smith. That was the essence of it. During Elizabeth's explanation, Michael's trembling grew worse, and he eventually collapsed to his knees on the floor, completely overwhelmed. This was truly a sight of utter defeat. Looking down at the pitiful sight of Michael, Mr. Smith said calmly, "Michael, you are truly despicable. Today, you are being dismissed for disciplinary reasons, but before that, apologize to James for all the trouble you've caused him, if you have any shred of conscience left as a human being." Michael, crouching on the floor and holding his head, weakly looked up and said, "James, I'm sorry for all the mean things I've done." Watching Michael break down and sob, I felt a profound sense of pity. In the end, Michael's wrongdoings were brought to light, and the board of directors unanimously decided to dismiss him for disciplinary reasons. Michael left T-Tech, but his followers remained in the company. Ironically, the very next day, those who were part of Michael's faction came to me one after the other, apologizing for their past rudeness and insults. Following these events, I was promoted to the head of the system development department in the next personal change. Thus, peace returned to the department. The lesson from this entire experience was that those who extend a helping hand to others in need will find others willing to help them in their own times of need. Elizabeth repaid the favor of me returning her wallet with the significant act of saving crucial documents for a business deal. It was a true realization of the saying, "Kindness begets kindness." Half a year has passed since then. As the new department head, I continue to have a good relationship with Elizabeth, Mr. Smith's mother, who still works as a cleaner from time to time, and we often enjoy chatting together as a break from work. Now, with trustworthy subordinates and favored by Mr. Smith, I lead a smooth and successful life, a stark contrast to the unfortunate first half of my life. Oh my, it's been a while, but I recognized you right away because you still look as frail and scruffy as ever. Are you wandering around here because you are sick? At the hospital, I ran into a classmate who, for some reason, always disliked me in high school. You've always been weak-minded and incompetent, but to be physically weak as well is just the worst. How pitiful. Well, I'm actually your attending physician. Excuse me. My name is James. I work as a resident doctor at the hospital. Doctors are considered to be among the successful in this world, but as far as I'm concerned, that's not the case at all. The term successful probably applies to every doctor but me. Hi, Dr. Smith. How many children do you have? I'm still single. Mistaken for a married man by a patient, the hospital room was enveloped in an awkward atmosphere. Nurses, overhearing my conversation with the patient, struggled to suppress their laughter at the edge of my vision. Dr. Smith, you somehow look older. Is it because you're worn out? Isn't that a bit harsh to say in my face? Often mistaken for being older than my actual age due to my appearance, I frequently receive harsh comments from the nurses. Even though I became a doctor, my life is still far from luxurious due to my medical school loans. I'm in debt. So, the prospect of enjoying a meal out with a woman was out of the question, and the position as my girlfriend has been vacant for a long time. I must admit, I have a dull personality and simple thought processes. Fortunately or not, I rarely dwell on my misfortunes or unhappiness, managing to sleep off most concerns without it affecting my health. Even when I do notice, I think, I've lived this far without worrying. Why start now and just let it go? My family and friends often look at me with a mix of pity, calling me naive. However, I couldn't care less about other people's opinions. Even I, however, can't help but feel down when faced with the sharp words from the nurses who have both beauty and talent. They would say, "Dr. Smith, maybe you should take a shower, or it would be nice if a wife to take care of you would show up soon," offering nothing but harsh opinions. Even today, after a night shift, a colleague said to me, "You should shave your beard at least. It might make that face of yours look a bit better." Even with this face is unnecessary, I muttered to myself, but I follow everyone's advice, as usual, and continue down the path of an unattractive loser. One day, a nurse scolded me upon seeing my appearance. "Dr. Smith, it sets a bad example for the other staff if you don't take care of your grooming. It makes the patients uncomfortable." Looking in the mirror, I saw my hair was a mess from sleeping in. Rushing and without time to style my hair or shave, my appearance was far from commendable. Indifferent even to my own appearance, I spend my days being reprimanded by those around me. "Dr. Smith, please don't sleep here." "Yes, yes." Nearly dozing off with a cup in hand, I was jolted awake by the sharp voice of the head nurse, Emily. Though the coffee in the cup swayed, it fortunately didn't spill on my lab coat. Had I stained my coat, Emily would have scolded me again. Today, I was unexpectedly asked to step in for a surgery, which ended up taking a long time. As a result, I had to stay overnight at the hospital, and by the time I finished the paperwork I had planned to do, I was starting to feel extremely sleepy. I thought about taking a shower and having coffee to wake up, but the quiet of the almost empty break room was so soothing that I almost dozed off right there. Sorry, I just nodded off for a bit. If you keep zoning out like that, it could lead to an accident. Snap out of it. My apologies. Here you go. This is the file for your new patient. Please go over it. After getting a bit of a scolding from Emily as usual, I was briefed about the new patient. While flipping through the file, I came across a familiar name and frowned and thought, Is it a name you recognize?" Seeing the patient's name and age, I found myself thinking back to an old classmate from long ago. Maybe I should go check on them. "Hey, you're off duty now, so please take off your lab coat. Otherwise, you might end up being given more work." Following Emily's advice, I quickly took off my lab coat and headed to the patient's room. Just before I reached the room, the patient came out and we bumped into each other head-on. Just as I recognized her immediately, she seemed to recognize me at once as well. She looked surprised at first, but then her face settled into the same mocking expression she had over a decade ago. Well, it's been a while, but you're still as scrawny and shabby as ever. I recognized you immediately. Are you loitering around here because you are sick?" She seemed to mistake me for a patient, looking at my worn-out, pajama-like clothes. "You are always weak-minded and incompetent, but to be physically weak too, that's just pitiful." She bombarded me with these harsh words, and I could only respond with a wry smile. Her name was Susan. She was a high school classmate, and although I don't recall ever doing anything to offend her, she had an intense dislike for me from our school days. It's possible I had said something insensitive, but we really had nothing to do with each other. We were in different classes and, under normal circumstances, would hardly have interacted. Yet, whenever our eyes met, she glared, and if I was nearby, she clicked her tongue. If I so much as broke a school rule, she would eagerly report me to the teachers. Back when I was more impulsive than I am now, I confronted her once when she glared at me. "Hey, did I do something to you?" That was the first time we ever spoke, and from then on, her hostility only seemed to grow. She completely ignored my question, as if my mere existence bothered her, and found fault with everything I did. She was the first in our school to get into a prestigious Ivy League university, and at the time, she was the talk of both the morning assembly and the staff room. Being openly disliked by her, a beautiful, smart, and responsible class president, meant that I was even told by our homeroom teacher to apologize for things I hadn't done. Even now, as adults, it seems her animosity towards me remains. Trying not to provoke her further, I carefully chose my words to clear up her misunderstanding. Actually, I'm your attending physician. What? Her face froze at my words. Didn't you know, my last name is Smith. I only sought a last name. I had no idea you were my doctor. I recognized you immediately. It seems you haven't changed your last name, so you're not married. I realized I had misspoken when the atmosphere around her turned icy. Susan's face morphed into a terrifying scowl, and by the time I realized I shouldn't have mentioned her marital status, she had turned her back on me in indignation and stormed back into her room. Left standing there, I was at a loss, shoulders slumped. I really messed up. Although I wanted to apologize immediately, the curtains were drawn around the bed, clearly shutting me out. I could already envision a complaint reaching the hospital and getting a severe reprimand from Emily. The next day, I resolved to apologize to her and headed to her room. I was bracing myself for a complaint from her, but surprisingly, there was none from her. However, that's not to say there was absolutely nothing. A nurse who happened to pass by and overheard the conversation reported it, and through a different route, I still ended up getting scolded by Emily. I guess I'm the guy who's not only unpopular but also unlucky. As I approached Susan's hospital room with heavy steps, I could hear a man's voice through the slightly open door. Just when I thought you could finally work at a decent place, this happens. I'm utterly disappointed in you. The harsh words from the man made me freeze in place. I've been subjected to various sarcastic comments, but I've never been spoken to with such coldness. Why can't you be like your sister? You always drag the family down with such shameful actions. The following woman's voice sounded distressed. It can't be helped. She's doing her best in her own way. Expecting more is just pointless. Another woman cut her off with a gentle voice. I checked the name on the hospital room again. It was indeed Susan's room. I didn't choose to be here. I could hear Susan's voice trying to argue back, but it lacked the usual forcefulness with which she criticized me. Her voice was small and trembling. All the things you do come back to haunt you. While your sister had job offers left and right even before graduating, you had to go through years of groundwork elsewhere, making detours before finally marketing yourself to get picked up. A disappointed sigh followed, and the words continued. It's shameful to see such a difference in capability between sisters who share the same blood. The father-like man said this, continuing to repeat similar sentiments. Peeking through the open door, I saw 3 people standing around Susan, who was sitting up in bed. Susan was biting her lip in frustration, her face downcast. Judging from the conversation, the 3 seemed to be her parents and sister. The way the words flowed out as they berated her suggested this was a usual treatment for Susan. To me, Susan seemed perfect, but it appeared her home situation was not. Even I, as oblivious as I am, could understand the situation in the room. Personal feelings aside, this is a hospital for the patients, and I am her attending doctor. I knocked vigorously on the door, not waiting for a response before opening it and stepping into the room. All 4 pairs of eyes pierced through me, but I'm not one to flinch at mere stares. Hi, I'm Dr. Smith, the attending physician. Nice to meet the family, and please, leave soon. Visits that burden the patient are not allowed. While the parents were taken aback, the sister quickly recovered from my surprise attack and started speaking boldly. What are you talking about? Are you saying it's not a problem for you to intrude on our family gathering? Family gathering, blaming the sick for their illness, calling them disgraceful, saying they've always been the lesser one, and ganging up on a patient like this, that's a novel idea for a family gathering. My words seemed to unsettle them, with the parents exchanging glances. Yet, Kate, Susan's sister, continued to argue. We're family, and that's why we can say these things. It's for her own good. Kate, with a sticky, sweet smile, was about to say more when Susan cut her off with a cry. Stop it, what's for my good? You don't care about me at all. Susan must have been holding back a lot until now. Her patience seemed to have run out as she vented her frustrations on her family. No matter how hard I try, I've never been praised. This is wrong, something's missing. Kate did this. Kate was like that. Kate would have. I'm sick of it. Susan's voice was almost a scream by the end, causing her sister to retract her creepy smile and snort. It can't be helped. The truth is, you are inferior to me. Telling you the truth and making you understand your place is what families do. You really are a hopeless case. Kate sighed with twisted logic, and I felt a chill down my spine. But Susan, who must have been aware of her sister's abnormality, completely ignored her and glared at her parents. When Kate wanted a pet, you immediately got a dog for her, but when I brought home a stray kitten, you told me you'd given it away while I was at school, right, Mom? But then, a year later, my family-loving sister told me the truth. It wasn't given away. You had taken it to the shelter to be put down, and you didn't tell me right away because you knew I'd go looking for it. Susan's voice trembled slightly with tears, but after taking a deep breath, she continued calmly. You're right, Kate, I was a fool. I'm done seeking love from people like you. From now on, you don't have to think of me as family, and I won't think of you that way either, so please leave. Don't ever come back. Susan firmly declared her disownment. With that, her sister snorted. Then, from now on, even if you're in trouble, don't rely on us. I doubt anyone would want to help you. Fight your illness on your own. Kate spat out those words and left the hospital room with her parents. The room became silent once they were gone, returning to its usual sterile atmosphere. Days later, in the courtyard on a mild spring day, I approached Susan, who was sitting on a bench looking up at the sky. Hey there. She glanced at me briefly, keeping her face turned upwards. Since the day she broke ties with her family, her prickly attitude towards me had softened somewhat. But it hadn't disappeared entirely. I still got a sharp comment whenever we met. Are you sure it's okay to have such an unreliable doctor? That's a harsh way to put it. I'm worried I might catch some strange germs from this unhygienic doctor. Despite the harsh words, the nurses have been reassuring, saying that I'm competent, so there hadn't been any formal complaints yet. But my mentality is certainly wearing thin. Ignoring Susan's reaction, I sat down beside her. Are you feeling nervous? I tried to speak as gently as possible. Susan's surgery was scheduled in 2 days. Even if it went well, she would need lifelong medication and occasional convalescence. I was much more nervous during my final job interview. Believe it or not, I had an offer from an international company. That's amazing. I was genuinely impressed, but Susan smiled self-deprecatingly. Well, I had to decline it because of my illness. My family was disappointed, and they lashed out at me. It was a mess. Far from receiving sympathy from her family, she was actually in such a situation. They probably blamed her more for declining the job offer rather than worrying about her illness. That's unfortunate, but with your talents, once things settle down, there'll be plenty of companies wanting you. When I tried to cheer her up, Susan fell silent for a moment before speaking. You've been a bit of help, you know. It was the first time she had mentioned what happened in the hospital room. Why did you help me? You thought I was a terrible person, didn't you? I'm your attending physician. After all, it's my job to put noisy visitors in their place. I put on a show of bravado. Honestly, I'm not usually that assertive. Back then, I really didn't want to intervene, and there was a chance I would have been talked down. If Susan hadn't declared her estrangement, it might have led to an ever-ending argument. I've hated you since high school. Really? It hurt to be told that directly, but I tried to remain calm. You weren't particularly good looking or smart, always walking around confidently with your messy hair and wrinkled shirt. You were careless and insensitive, often upsetting teachers and girls. She spoke in a flat voice, recounting my embarrassing past. I try to live without dwelling on the past, but remembering it now is cringeworthy. My self-esteem was definitely taking a hit. But you always had people around you, and you got along well with your brother, who was a year ahead. No one really spoke badly of you to your face. Indeed, no one directly confronted me about my character. I had been scolded many times, but I also received plenty of praise. I must have had a fairly normal upbringing. I was trying so hard in that family, yet nobody loved me, and I couldn't get along with my sister. I always wondered, why is it so unfair? I would probably feel the same if I were in such a household. Then you appeared, seemingly without effort, having everything I wanted. You got along with your brother so naturally, and I resented you for it. That was the reason Susan had always been hostile towards me. Even though we both have siblings, what's the difference between you and me? Siblings. Even though I understood her reasoning, I still had to clear up a misunderstanding. Well, I don't know if it's okay to say this now, but my brother and I aren't actually blood related. What? Susan, who had been gazing up at the sky for a while, turned to face me for the first time. Her eyes were wide, possibly from surprise. Both my brother and I are adopted. Our parents are foster parents, and I could probably find out who my real parents are if I looked into it, but I've never felt the need to do so. Adopted, both of you? Yeah, we have other siblings too, all of them adopted. It's kind of like a collection, but to me, they are what I'd call family. How come you get along so well with your brother, just like a real family, even though you're step-siblings? It wasn't all perfect from the start. We've been through a lot, but overcoming those challenges, we've built a bond stronger than that of real brothers. I had no idea about any of this. Back then, we weren't exactly in a position to share such stories, you and I. For those close to me, our family's story was well known, but for Susan, who was unaware, it must have been quite a shock. After hearing my story, Susan looked down, her expression filled with deep thought. I'm really the worst. Being in such a privileged position, and yet harboring envy without knowing the full story, taking out my frustrations on you. I'm as bad as they say. She suddenly seemed to lose her confidence, which took me by surprise. Hey, don't get so down all of a sudden. You're scaring me. I'm just an unattractive girl anyway. It seemed my words struck a nerve, but it also revived her spirit as she glared at me. I'm always told I'll be fine on my own. That's what all you guys say. I'm just a woman unloved by her family or anyone else. While I felt a bit of empathy for her self-deprecation, I sighed in relief when I noticed someone in the corner of my eye. That's not true. Look, there's someone who cares about you right over there. Following my words and gaze, Susan noticed a middle-aged woman standing a short distance away. The woman, named Dorothy, had been a long-time housekeeper at Susan's home. She could be considered Susan's second mother, worried about her after her family stopped visiting and coming to take care of her during her hospital stay. She's a good person. She always asks me to take good care of you. Maybe you should consider her your parent, even if you're not related by blood. There you go, saying careless things again. When I made such a casual remark, Susan raised her voice in response. Then, standing up, she quickly walked towards Dorothy. Seeing Susan and Dorothy greet each other from afar, I waved back at them enthusiastically. To an outsider, their easy and unreserved relationship might indeed appear to be that of a true mother and daughter. For someone like me, who grew up without parents, the concept of blood relation seems trivial. If there's mutual respect and affection akin to that of a parent and child, that's what I consider a family. As I absent-mindedly watched Susan and Dorothy enter the ward, The sound of the hospital's intercom system reached my ears. It's likely Emily is looking for me again. With a sense of resignation, I started walking as if to follow the two of them. I need to do my best as a doctor to ensure they can continue to enjoy their close relationship,